So the ZR1 is going to be coming out very soon. Whether or not you can get one is a totally different question. But if you do, should you trade your Z06 in for it? So let's start with the basics. What's the difference between the ZR1 and the Z06? Well, let's start with figures, right? The ZR1 has over 300 horsepower more than the Z06, almost 400 more. It's 1,064 horsepower. So that is a noticeable increase in power. So you certainly will feel that being in the ZR1. Top speed is significantly higher. We're talking about close to 40 miles per hour faster in top speed. However, the torque is also there. You get faster torque with the ZR1. The RPM is dropped. I believe the max on the ZR1 is 8,000. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is significantly, marginally lower than the Z06 due to the turbos. But here's the thing. Here's what I really want to distinguish. You're going to be paying a much higher price tag for the ZR1. Now, dealer markups aside, you're looking probably minimum of 70K. I mean, why would you buy a ZR1 in the lowest trim with no features? I don't know. Maybe you just want the power, but I figured if you're spending, $170,000 plus, it's time to really just don't go cheap. That's my opinion. Don't go cheap. If you're going to spend the extra whatever to get exactly what you want. So why anybody would go lowest model, lowest trim, none of the enhanced features, none of the things in the car, doesn't make much sense to me personally. So that being said, the torque, you got a lot more lower end torque. And with the lower end torque, you're going to get more of that muscle car feeling right off the line. It's 2.3 to 60, at least with the ZTK package. The appearance of the car with the ZTK package, it looks nasty. It looks like a big FU to the world. That massive wing on the back, I think it looks great. I think it's an incredible looking car. It's got a few extra aero features. It's got some more ventilation. It's got more heat exchangers. There's a vent above the wheel casing. There's one actually right where the boomerang ends. There's another air intake that the Z06 doesn't have. Overall, though, it looks like a Z06. The body's not wider. It's not much different. You would have to have I would say, a somewhat trained eye to be able to just tell the difference between the two. From a distance, you might not, unless you see the wing. Now, granted, people aftermarket can add that wing to any of the C8 variations, and you might have a hard time if you don't know what you're looking for. It has the quad exhaust like the Z06, has the same body as the Z06, whereas the C8 Stingray is smaller and it's not as wide. It's more narrow. So, not a lot appearance-wise, but performance-wise, the numbers speak for themselves. You have over 400 more torque, over 400 or close to 400 more horsepower, and that's definitely going to be noticeable in the car. So, but let's talk about use case. If you're buying a ZR1, you got to track the car. I don't really think you need much more than the Z06 on the street, personally. It's already, even with the rear engine, I say rear, mid-engine in this car, engine behind you, in a sense, and ahead of the axles, making it a mid-engine car. Even with the engine weight over the wheels, it's still hard to maintain traction. Not like a C7 Z06, there's certainly an improvement there, but the traction is not the easiest thing. If you gun it, you're gonna feel it. Like, you're gonna definitely feel it break loose unless you have perfect conditions. So with that much more power, it's probably not going to touch the ground much on the street. And that's something I think you need to consider. Is it really worth the extra money? I mean, it all comes really down to money, though, right? It's like, if you can afford it and it doesn't make much of a difference to you, doesn't impact you in a way that, puts you out of pocket, and you're broke and you're driving a ZR1, you should really consider, like, how much is it worth it? Now, if you have all the money in the world, yeah, fine, buy it, right? Why not? So that I want to make clear. Money's obviously the deciding factor here. But is it really worth the extra money is what I'm getting down to. If you're a money conscious individual, is it worth the extra money? On the street, my answer is no. I haven't driven it. Maybe that'll change just to feel that kind of power. I can't say for sure. My assumption is no. There's also the sound component. Part of what makes driving the Z06 so exhilarating to me, even though it's not a manual. If this car was a manual, this would be probably the most fun car to drive, period. I don't know. I've not driven a wide variety of cars, but I've driven a lot of cars over the years. And this car is incredibly fun, even though it's not a manual. And because it's refined power and it has a luxury feel to it. Is it the most luxurious? No, but it has a luxury feel to it. And the sound is what gives way more of an experience. With the ZR1, you get a little bit more muffled sound. And I don't know how much that's going to impact the experience in the cabin. But it certainly is heard from the outside. I can tell, like, that's the turbos muffle the power, or the sound of the power. The Z06 has this clean, crisp, really crisp sound, and the ZR1 doesn't sound like it has that. It has this more muffled sound. It does sound like a beast emerging from the darkness. So like I said, if you have the money, get both. Why not? That's what I plan on doing. But I don't know if it's really worth it on the street. So if your use case is street use, like mine mostly is for my Z06, I don't really see it being worth the money. I don't know how much that power is going to be able to put down. And then where are you going to go? Like, how often are you going to be able to really open that thing up? I mean, even in the Z06, I can have a car 30, 40, 50 car lengths in front of me. I step on the gas and I'm already caught up, and that was very short-lived, and I hit 100 and my thrill was done. And there's always the need to look out for cops, and it's just I don't know. It's not. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. It's like I don't drive crazy in the city anymore like I used to. It's just like I like fast acceleration. I don't really speed. You know, like I just don't. I don't really speed because it's just there's no use case for it on the street. It's too dangerous. I mean, I'm not a professional driver. I would say I'm a pretty safe driver, but I drive fast, but I drive safe. And meaning that if it's a dangerous zone, I don't do stupid things. If it's a lot of traffic, I don't do stupid things. And if that's your use case, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it. I would personally, I love the engine, right? The LT7 engine, I think it's great. It's the twin of the LT6. They're not the same engine. I don't want to say at all they're very similar, but they are different engines. It's not like the LT7 is just two turbos put on an LT6. That's not what it is. It's definitely got different components. So for me, I think it really boils down to, I don't know if the LT7's legendary. It kind of is. It's probably the fastest, I don't know for sure. It's probably one of the fastest production applications of a twin turbo V8 without any hybridization. That's kind of cool. But let's be real. Like, turbos and non-hybridization is going to be around for a while. I would say maybe in a year or two, somebody's going to try to top that with the same kind of setup. Twin turbo, V8. Turbos are very common and popular now. They're turboing all kinds of things. On the other hand, the Z06, for performance, natural aspiration is kind of out. It's just not really happening anymore. And nobody's really competing on that field anymore. And it's kind of the last of an era. And it has a classic, distinct sound that lets you know, like, this is it. It's like, I mean, it's a swan song. And that's to me is the sentimental value of the LT6, which is why I like the LT6 better than the LT7. Even though the LT7 is a beautiful piece of art and machinery and engineering, I don't know if I'd keep a ZR1 long term. I totally plan on keeping my Z06. There's no inkling in my body that I have to trade this vehicle. Whereas the ZR1, it's like, maybe I'll get tired of it. You know, like, it's great. It's got all that power, but how often do I track it? How often am I really going to take it? How often am I going to do these kind of crazy things? I don't know. As it stands, not a lot. The car's going to be collecting dust more than driving it. Whereas with the Z06, I can take it out on a day like this, enjoy the power, feel the speed, and I do enjoy it. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe once I drive it, that whole story changes. But this is where I stand right now, and I don't necessarily see it changing much. I think I'll love the thrill, but it's got to have some really distinct features. You know, it's not like upgrading from a Stingray to a Z06, which is night and day in terms of like just feel, right? I mean, you got a totally different engine, a totally different sound. It's different. It feels like a different car. But moving from a Z06 to a ZR1, yeah, you get all that extra power, but it's still going to feel somewhat like a Z06. I mean, it's like the same engine, right? It's like a 5.5 liter flat plane crank, maybe a little more muffled in the sound. Yeah, you got a lot more power, but go in a Tesla Plaid, for example, you'll feel that instant torque and power, but the experience isn't the same. In a lot of ways, it feels slower, even though it's not. It feels that way because you don't have the same sound experience. So your body is taking all these sensory experiences or these sensations and putting them into an experience, and that's what you're interpreting the experience as. So for me, I think with a muffled sound, it's going to really impact the experience in a way where, yeah, you'll feel the power. You're definitely going to feel it pull harder, maybe a little faster off the line, a little more low-end torque. It's going to be thrilling, but I can see it getting old. Like, in the sense of like, if you were already used to the Z06, I can see it not being as much of a factor as Z06 was from the Stingray. But what do I know? I think the Zora will definitely be a more interesting experience, considering that instant torque with all that power being put down. That could be a different experience for sure. I think that is like the ultimate testament of what GM has done, and I think there's definitely value in the Zora if you like hybridization technology and all that. So give me my old internal combustion engine. I'm good. I don't need the hybrid stuff. I really enjoy combustion engines. I do have an electric vehicle. My truck, it's my daily, and but I still love the sound of the Z06. So there you have it. There's my thoughts. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the ZR1 has a totally different experience and it's worth keeping long term. I love the labels and the name and ZR1. I love what comes with it. I love the history of it. But we'll see. We'll see if it does what it's supposed to. And we'll see if the user, or rather the customer feedback, is exactly what we want in that car. So anyway, catch you next time.